If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
You are listening to MINDSHOCK True Crime. This is Steven Avery, episode 11, So-Called Evidence 3. I am your host, Bruce McGuire.
And Maxwell Powers.
And Johnny Mills.
And we are continuing to examine whether any of the so-called evidence that the state has presented against Stephen Allen Avery and Brendan Dassey is legitimate. Because everywhere we turn, it looks like there's all this illegitimate evidence, obvious planting, obvious lying and misdirection, and obvious ignoring of other excavation sites. Cuss Road, other dog hits, the deer camp. There's a lot of strangeness in this case. Once again, if you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like this podcast, you can click the like button. Feel free to share it across social media platforms and leave any questions, comments, insults, or anything you see fit. Any general thoughts at all, and we will get to them. You could also like our Facebook page and check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon as well. All right, so we left off last time talking about how Chuck Avery actually saw headlights in the area at 8 p.m. on November 4th where the RAV4 would be found the following morning. What do we think of that? Is that just a coincidence, or did someone transport the RAV4 for planting to be discovered the following morning?
Or was it a Jeep?
So let's look at other witnesses that we don't hear about for some reason. And Maxwell, let me know if you've heard about this. A dispatcher recording at 24:30 said this: turkey hunters at the Richard Drum Forest and Twin Rivers Bridge saw a dark green truck and a guy in waders in the trails below the bridge on Thursday, November 3rd. The hunter felt it was important enough to call the sheriff about what he saw. So this must not be typical behavior or typical things seen.
Yeah, at that year, at that time of year.
Maxwell, what do you think?
That's interesting.
They went and investigated it, though, right? The location. They found some stuff.
Okay, so the call was forwarded to Calumet. And important to note is that Steven said that Teresa turned left going west, which also happens to be the direction Scott Tadich. Is it Tadike or Tadich?
Taddick.
Or Taddick? Tadike?
It's just
Just
Scott.
think attic. Just think attic.
Or Scotty.
Put a T
Oh, we
in
just
it.
moved to Scotty. That's where Scotty was going. So Scott Tadich, Scotty said that he was on the road heading west to go deer hunting. So Bobby also sees him. Bobby said he left the property and Teresa was there. Steven said he saw Teresa leave and head west, which also would have been the way she would go home. And he goes to see Bobby, and Bobby had left. This is Steven's story now. So Scotty and Teresa Hallback would be both on the road going the same direction if this is true. So did Scotty chase her down and do something to her? Did he... And what was going on with the guy in the waders under the bridge on Thursday, November 3rd? If you're a turkey hunter, Maxwell, do you hunt?
No, I
It took you that long to come up with no?
well,
Okay.
no, because the only time I remember, like when I was a kid, I used the what do you call that when you put a rock between the thing? What do you call this?
Slingshot?
Slingshot. Yeah.
You hunt with a slingshot.
Yeah.
That's your
Those are
definition.
illegal, man.
No, that was a long time ago, and this was in another country. But I was young, man. I was like 7 or like it was kind of.
Was it in Canada?
It was commonplace.
They used World
And-
War II.
Canada?
And,
World War II, right?
I thought he was a World
And
War
I
One
hit-
vet.
Oh.
World War One.
Yeah, that too. But
This was in Europe? You were hunting in Europe with a slingshot. The story of Maxwell
But,
Powers. We need to do an autobiographical podcast. Maxwell has a lot of
How
stories.
many
to
Nazis
tell.
you kill with that slingshot?
Oh my god.
Nazis were there Nazis? Nazis World
World
War
War
II.
II, yeah.
No, he said World War One vet.
No, 2, I thought.
He said World War One.
Wait, Civil War or World War?
World
Both,
War One.
both 1 and 2, motherfucker.
Damn, you're old. All right. So if you're a turkey hunter and you see a guy in waders under the bridge, would you call the sheriff?
No.
Would I call the sheriff after what?
Unless you got what?
Would I call the sheriff if what?
If you saw a guy in waders, you know those big boots that go up to the thighs?
Okay.
If you saw just some random guy in waders under a bridge, there must be some kind of suspicious vibe for you to call the sheriff about that. That's weird.
I think
right?
what made it weird,
I
he
wouldn't-
said he saw the green.
Oh yeah,
truck
they
or
also
whatever.
saw
I
a
wouldn't-
dark
I
green
wouldn't call-
truck. Yeah.
I
What?
wouldn't call a sheriff if I saw someone like that. Like they're probably like fishing or something.
But what if they're? But he wasn't fishing though.
Oh, that
I
was
don't know.
down.
People, they're just paranoid, I guess. I don't know.
They're just always paranoid. Okay.
Well, no. I mean, also, they might know that she's missing. Oh, the green truck. And then it's weird. But if the guy is just in waders walking around and that didn't happen, you're just like, this guy's just.
Yeah, well,
go and
especially if he
walk
doesn't
around.
have a fishing pole and some guy's just randomly walking around in waders in a river.
Well, they might have not seen it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe he just likes going and walking in the water.
So Mr. Taddyke states that he went deer hunting that day, and he says he went hunting in Kewaunee County or city. He would have had to go north. So if he went to Drum Forest, and also Wisconsin allows hunting in state parks during that part of the year. And Scott Tadich has a green Ford Ranger. That's his vehicle.
Green Ford Ranger. Somebody else has a green Jeep, though.
Who's that?
I don't remember.
Is that Bobby?
Is it Bobby? I thought he had a Blazer. Somebody has. I recently just started hearing something about a green Jeep where it could have gotten mistaken for the RAV4. And then there was something to do with blood. I don't remember, though.
All right, let's talk about John Lurkin. So, propane tank truck driver. John Lurkin gave testimony at trial that he saw a green SUV leaving the Averys between 3:30 and 4 p.m. while filling his propane tank at a filling station down the road. Have you ever heard of this, Maxwell?
No.
No.
We have to keep going back to the Making a Murderer gets accused of being biased towards Avery, but they left out so much stuff that's supporting
The show.
Avery's innocence.
The documentary.
Yeah, the documentary left out so much. So if it was really truly biased, it really seemed like they just left out so much stuff that looks damning against Manitowoc and looks positive towards Avery for some reason. I don't know why. So, okay, so another guy, some guy named Howard, called in stating that his neighbor needed to talk to someone. The guy was working in Mishicot on a roof and stated that he had seen what he thought was Teresa Hallback's RAV4. He had told his coworkers this, and Channel 11 News showed up to interview him. So this Howard stated that the neighbor is shook up and didn't know what to do. Dispatch called someone and they said they would call him. Mishicot is 4 minutes, about 3.1 miles away from Avery Salvage Yard. And there's not much more to that account. So we'll follow up with that to see.
Somebody saw that car. And then
So he
called
stated, this guy stated that his neighbor.
Yeah, he called
Yeah.
for his neighbor, right?
Yeah.
There's an actual, you could listen to
Yes,
that call.
you can.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't think there's any more information other than that.
Nah, I think that was
So
it.
I don't know if they followed up with it and then they just swept it under the rug, if it was her RAV4 or if it wasn't her RAV4. I don't know. Okay, let's move on to another interesting curiosity. Marable Caves Park. So this is Coburn's testimony. Do you know who Coburn is, Maxwell?
That's the DNA forensic person, right?
That's Culhane.
Oh,
Sherry Culhane.
Oh, wait,
The
what's
hair lady.
Okay.
Andrew Coburn.
Oh, Colburn is the
Lincoln-
cop that
yeah,
sat
Lincoln
down on the
Coburn.
bed, right?
No.
Oh, wait, that's
He
the
was,
other one.
He was there, though, right? While it
Oh, wait,
happened.
Colburn is the one
Coburn
that was
and Link
overlooking
were the Manitowoc guys that weren't supposed to be on the Avery property, and they were the guys that basically found most of the evidence, coincidentally.
That was only evidence was found when they were there. On everything.
Almost everything.
So he was with the cop that was sitting on the bed that found the key.
Yeah.
Lank and Coburn, yeah. So this is Coburn's testimony, day 7 of the trial, page 106. He says that he and Remaker, do you know who Remaker is?
He was the guy in charge of looking over Lank and Colburn? Or no?
I don't even remember who that is. The name sounds familiar.
Dave Remaker.
Was he the guy that came out of retirement?
Yeah, that's Bushman.
Bushman, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, I gotta frame up Avery, man. coming out of retirement.
Remiker.
Yo.
Dave Remiker is a Manitowoc County detective. He also was complicit in quite a few things and interesting curiosities and conflicts of interest. You should listen to our podcast, Maxwell. You should listen to Critical Conflicts, episodes 1 and 2.
I remember you saying Dave Remiker a lot from an article or something.
Okay, so Coburn says that him and Remiker went to Marable Caves Park because searchers had found evidence there. He said that they went there, bagged the evidence, and handed it over to Calumet Sheriff's Department. For some reason, Strang doesn't ask him any more questions about that. That's kind of weird, right? Can we corroborate what evidence this was? What was the evidence, and what did Calumet County do with it, if indeed they got it? Because there's a lot of weird switcheroos going on in this case. So, and that's pretty far from Avery Salvage Yard. So why, also what's weird is why were Remiker and Coburn the ones going to check it out? They had nobody else? Why aren't Calumet going to check it out? It's so weird. Also, another interesting thing is Pam Sturm. Do you know who Pam Sturm is, Maxwell?
Pam Sturm. Nah, I have no idea.
Maxwell Army. She's the one who found the RAV4 led by God. Just directly to it in the huge lot. So, and she's also cousins with the Hallbacks and Jerry Pagel, sheriff of Calumet. So she was actually searching in Mishicot, and she found a cell phone by the river, and she was searching with a local bar owner, and they turned it over to the sheriff's department, and we never heard from it again. So we don't know whose cell phone that is, what that was. Was that Teresa Hallback's real cell phone, and then it's the fake one that they recovered at Avery's? Or did they find it and then put it back at Avery's? We don't know.
The one that didn't burn?
Well, it's sort of
rest
burned.
of the body.
Somewhat burned. Okay, so let's go back to the quarry. So state troopers supposedly actually searched the quarry as well, and this was reported in the news as well. And there were multiple quarry searches. So if the bones were discovered on one of these on the particular search that this was mentioned on a news report, that would be November 10th. So who exactly found the bones? Did the troopers find the bones? If the state troopers were not connected with Manitowoc County, and Manitowoc County never wanted there to be anything found outside of Avery Salvage Yard, did these troopers throw a wrench in the frame-up? Because there's all these other locations that have supposedly Teresa Hallback's bones or some kind of bones.
Yeah, I heard that one too. That's a really good idea.
But you know what else is bizarre is that nothing can be nailed down definitively. And is that exactly how they wanted it? Because when you want to get the actual facts of the case, why can't we corroborate anything? It's like everything's been intentionally obfuscated.
Yeah, it was like Bushman was there.
Bushman is everywhere.
And then he was saying that there's a possible burial ground somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then some people went there, and they checked it out, and it looked like it was just a rotting tree that was just soft, so it wasn't actually a burial ground.
Wait, which site are you talking about? Are you talking about the excavation site or a different site?
I think a different site. They had it blocked off, a small little area.
Okay.
And then I believe Bushman told everybody to just go there to go check it out and see if there's anything.
Were they doing something elsewhere while Bush was diverting them?
Yeah. Divert them over there while Bushman can plant possibly the bones. And I think Scott Blodorn and what's his name? I forget the other.
I call him Blodorn. Didn't you say it was Bladorn?
I thought it was Bladorn, but Blodorn and Scott Hilligus. No, Ryan Hilligus and Scott Blodorn.
Yeah.
Supposedly they were there also on the Avery property.
Yes.
So divert everybody over there. Let's do our job here. Let's find some bones.
Yeah, that's weird. So let's see what else we can uncover. So maybe the troopers got them, but the troopers also put red flags around the quarry, and certain newscasts reported this as happening that day, which was November 10th, 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a mention of the ilium.
The what?
The ilium, the part of the bone.
Bone marrow? Yeah, I don't know what the ilium is.
I'm sure Maxwell knows what an ilium is.
Aliens.
The ilium is the uppermost and largest part of the hip bone. So this was also mentioned. So we don't know whether the ilium was found amongst the burn pit fragments or at the quarry. Maxwell, no thoughts?
Say it again.
We don't know if the ilium was found as part of the burn pit fragments or at the quarry site or another site. The excavation. These things. It's like
because they collected it and they put it in a box, right? Or something like that. Yeah, I have no idea
all
what you're
right.
talking
Let's
about.
move on. So they also mentioned that they dug out silt ponds on the Radandt property. So is it possible they found the bones in the silt ponds? Because they did search the quarry property, and this is in the trial testimony.
What's the silt pond?
Silt?
Yeah, what the hell is that?
It's kind of like a mud pond, right?
Like a sandy mud, something like that.
Silt pond. It's just a pond, I guess, with silt in it. I don't know what silt is, though.
Silt, it's like clay sand. The actual definition is fine sand, clay, or other material carried by running water and deposited as a sediment, especially in a channel or harbor.
Okay, and,
So it's sediment.
okay.
It's like
Okay.
a muddy pond, sand, silt.
And how is that? Okay,
So they dug out the ponds on Radandt's property. So did they find the bones there? Were the bones never meant to be found,
uh-huh.
Johnny?
Say it again.
Were the bones never meant to be found?
But they were placed in the barrels, or they were in the barrels,
Well, what if they weren't?
because they weren't there before. So
Yeah,
they,
but what if they found them when they weren't meant to be found, and then they just placed them in the barrels to make it look like Steven Avery did it? What if they never wanted them to be found?
but like, well, I don't get it. Why though?
That's no fun. They have to frame somebody.
Well, it's kind of hard. I mean, is it hard to put... Is the reason this whole thing went wrong because the bones were never supposed to have been found? When they were
I
found,
see.
because of state troopers or whatnot, people that weren't in on it. Because the illogical guilters always say, oh, well, it couldn't have been a cover-up because that's too many people in on it. What if there weren't that many people in on it? It was just a couple guys. So all the honest people, the state troopers and some of these other people that weren't in on the conspiracy, if they started finding stuff, then in order to, because they were like, if there's nothing on Avery's property, they have to put it there. So this was kind of like a last-ditch effort. This was like a scramble job, and that's why it's so sloppy. Because maybe they never intended for it to be this way. And they had to do
to
the best
find bones.
Right. If they never, or whatever the case may be. Like, let's say we have their frame plan, and things are coming up to mess up the plan, so then they have to kind of scramble to fix it and make it
or
work.
work in their favor.
Yeah. What
Or
do you
something
mean?
could have happened where like the bones weren't actually supposed to be there, but
Yeah.
something happened where it caused this a benefit to their frame up job.
Well, it depends on what happens. So if you're talking Hilligus and Blodorn, if they
Blador.
did the frame up and the police just went with it, because they were like, if they really think Avery's guilty, or if they think he's innocent and they want him to be guilty, they're not going to ask any questions about any shady cover-ups. They may or may not intentionally assist, but they're not going to stop people from framing him if they want him to go to jail. So that could explain. It might be just a mishmash of all of these things. You have people that are smart doing the frame up. You have people that are stupid involved in the frame up.
And that's assuming this is actually a frame up, right? It's not.
Well, what do you think? This isn't a frame up?
Yeah, I don't know. It's still hard to say, man. I was thinking this question the other day. I was like, all right, let's pretend, or how would you feel if you find out, like, let's say a week from now, they find out that Avery didn't do it.
Didn't?
Didn't do it.
Okay.
Like, there's all the evidence he didn't do it. How would you feel? Like, knowing that he's been in jail for this long,
Oh.
then he's like out now. Here's all the evidence. He didn't do it. It was a frame up. How would you feel?
Well,
Just like a simple like question, like not even that
I mean,
detailed.
it's messed up.
It's messed up.
Yeah,
You're mad, right?
messed
So
up.
what if there's a bunch of evidence that came out that he actually did do it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Like what?
kinda-
Well, then he did it.
I know, but it's like we're spending like this whole Maura Murray like documentary. It makes it seem like he didn't do it. So that thought is like in
Makes
my
it
head.
seem like who didn't do it.
Like Avery didn't do anything.
Oh, making a murder. You said missing more murder.
Missing Maura Murray?
That's what you just said.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, you
Oh, you
just
said
said
okay.
that.
You said
You
making a murder. Okay, so making a murder.
I really said that?
Yeah.
That's so weird. So yeah, like you know, that thought, like when I first saw it, is presented in a way where it's like he didn't do it.
Yeah.
There's no proof or anything like that, but you know, having that in your mind already, and then knowing that he did do it after the fact, like 100% truth, like Zellner figured it out, he definitely did it.
Well, here's the thing. If he definitely did do it, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think they probably would have figured it out already by now. If he did it.
I mean, he did, right? Since he's in jail.
Yeah, if you're in jail, that has to mean you're guilty. We have to
right.
pretend nobody ever got exonerated, ever. I mean, it's, again, we don't know if he did it or not. Like I said, if he's a genius or he has a split personality, one of them is an absolute genius and the greatest genius in the history of crime. I mean, it's possible that he did it. I don't know where you were going with that line of reasoning, though.
No, it was just funny thinking about, like, I'd be angry if he was innocent this whole time, and then he obviously gets out. All right, you're happy, but like you're kind of angry. Like, what the heck?
Miscarriage
Like,
of
this could
justice.
happen to me, or this could happen to you. But then, like, on the other hand, like, he's proven actually guilty. I'd be kind of pissed too, because it's like all like kind of like a waste. Almost.
Not really, because even if he's guilty, this is a miscarriage of justice because he didn't get due process. He didn't get a fair trial. This is pure corruption, whether or not he's guilty or not. It's like there's a bigger issue here. And that's part of the reasons we're even doing the podcast. It's not just about him.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the justice system. You're supposed to get a fair trial. He did not get that. He was not proved beyond a reasonable doubt to have committed this crime. That's the real issue. So it's not really about specifically defending him or not. Which, by the way, this might be a good time to mention it. Remember the whole cat thing where he threw the cat into the fire? He actually didn't.
He didn't? What do you
No.
mean?
So
Really?
He said
so a
he
lot
did.
of people use this as a character reference, trying to character assassinate him. So he was drunk with two other guys, some guy named Yanda and another guy. Not Janda, Yanda with a Y. Different guy.
Yanda Janda?
Yanda's the last name. They actually have the police report. Yanda said that he threw the cat in the fire.
Yanda
said,
did?
Yeah, Yanda said that Steven poured gasoline on it, but Yanda physically took the cat, threw it in the fire, and killed it.
Wait.
Also to
And he confessed. He's like, I feel bad about it. And yet he gets no sentence, and Steven gets. So again, we're believing now, if they're all drunk, Steven might not even remember exactly what happened.
Yeah,
if
that's
they're all
weird.
drunk, he's with these two other guys who said that he was involved. So these two other guys get no penalty. So this is Manitowoc logic. So let's say,
But he's Avery. He has to take the blame.
I know. Let's say, let's say you killed somebody, Johnny, and then you go to the police and you're like, yeah, me and Maxwell were drinking and I ended up killing somebody, but Maxwell didn't stop me. Maxwell might have even told me to do it. They're like, oh, okay, no problem, Johnny. You can go free. Maxwell, you're going to prison. You didn't stop this guy from killing somebody. 'Cause that's what happened with the cat situation.
But did you say Avery followed up with the fuel? I mean, the thing.
Yanda's account states that Avery doused it in gasoline, whatever that
Wait,
means.
where did this whole come out that he like killed it though? He threw it into the fire.
So the Manitowoc County, the official police report. So you can look up Yanda's actual handwritten statement, and he clearly states that he threw the cat himself, by himself.
and that was
Wow.
Avery's cat, right?
yeah,
Wasn't that his cat?
Well, it was, yeah. So, and there's also a lot of rumors that the cat was like a troublemaker and attacked kids and stuff. So they were kind of like putting it down or whatever. I don't know. Let's say it doesn't matter if that's true or not. Who knows?
No.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant whether that's true or not. But if they're completely drunk, they don't really know what they're doing. Avery, we don't know the situation. We weren't there. But are we going to take a drunk, hungover guy's account of what happened as true? I mean, maybe Avery did throw the cat in the fire. We don't know. And he admitted that he was involved with bad people and he was drunk. So it's not like he said, I had nothing to do with that. Avery admitted that he was involved in the incident. Or he said it was about the cat thing is what he called it. So if he was too drunk to remember exactly, maybe he didn't even douse it in gasoline. We don't know. Maybe he was just sitting there getting drunk, and they made that story up, and he was too drunk to remember. We don't know what happened. We know he got drunk, and he's a young, dumb kid at the time. We weren't there, so we don't know what happened, but why are we going to take the account of some hungover drunk people as gospel truth? But what's interesting is Manitowoc, when they filed the police report, instead of saying Yanda threw the cat in the fire, they changed it to they threw the cat in the fire and killed it, to include Avery. So they specifically included Avery and Yanda together when it was clearly Yanda who acted alone in the actual throwing of the cat into the fire. So this is a good example of how everything is misrepresented. And once again, the Making a Murder documentary, they didn't even explain that.
Maybe
so
he
people
killed
people
Teresa.
what?
Maybe he killed Teresa.
Who?
Yanda.
Yanda?
He killed the cat, so he must
Yanda
have
or
killed
Janda? No, but I'm just saying, the Making a Murder documentary, like they could have went out of their way to make Avery look way more sympathetic, but they didn't. Why? I don't know. Or did they simply not dig into the facts? I mean, it seemed like they dug into a lot of the facts. To me, it made it seem like they were trying to be slightly objective as possible. And that's just how it seemed to me. Other people disagree and say it's way favorable to Avery.
It's also, they have to cut it down.
Yeah.
So there probably was a lot more information.
Yeah.
Not included.
But if Avery doesn't even remember what happened, he might have not even doused the cat in fire. How do we know that's true?
He might have not even been there.
Too drunk to remember. Or maybe he doused the cat in fire and threw the cat in the fire himself. But we don't know that to be true, so why are we going to pretend that's true and pile on assumptions? So that was just a quick aside. But anyway, so let's go back to the Ilium.
What's Ilium?
So this guy named Bo is the witness. So we also have evidence tag number 8675, and this was referenced in a report by Trooper Austin, and Exhibit 402. So we don't have the actual report of Austin, but it'd be interesting to see what it says there. Also, what was funny is that Judge Willis didn't seem to care that there was a third burn site. He just kind of... He just ended for the day, and that's it, and then it wasn't brought up again. So, all right, let's talk about the bones at the quarry some more. So, if the Ilium was found at the quarry pit, then how did it get there? So, the Ilium is actually the only piece of evidence that wasn't found by Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. So, once again, if the Ilium wasn't part of the plan, then things had to be kind of scrambled to account for things. Things would have to be mislabeled or lost. A lot of funny business would have to go on if somebody's messing up the frame-up job. So the Manitowoc County reports basically stop on November 8th. So we don't even know for sure that it's a female skeleton, do we? Because according to some people that are speculating that there's supposed tissue analysis of the bone, but they didn't have the full pelvis. It was just part of the pelvis. And if the part is too small, do they know that for sure?
I don't know. Can't they test that now?
Well, they don't let Zellner test anything.
You know why?
What?
Did you hear what happened? In 2011, the police, they gave back the bones to the family.
Yeah. Didn't we talked about that, right?
Did we? I don't know if we mentioned.
They gave the bones back, and then they don't even know if they're her bones because they weren't definitively tested, so they're just giving away random bones. I don't know. It's kind of weird. So Eisenberg's testimony, evidence tag number 8675. So apparently, this is not included, so we don't know who found it. So if Trooper Austin found it, it's not included in the MTSO or the CASO reports. And he did testify on day 3 about providing maps and graphics for the exhibits. So we still don't really know who found the quarry bones. Is that kind of weird? And Dr. Eisenberg also mentions that he helped her with graphics and reports, but nothing definitive about finding any kind of bones. So Eisenberg makes it sound like she's aware of the bones and their location because of Austin's report. So does that mean someone else found it and Austin reported that someone else found it, or Austin found it himself? We don't know. But the fact that this is all a mystery, isn't that telling in and of itself? Shouldn't all of this have been logged meticulously if this was an up-and-up investigation? And Eisenberg said that the evidence was just given to her under the evidence tag. Also, Radandt's and Radandt's Quarry is referred to as the gravel pit. So they seem to be using some of these words interchangeably. And then there were different groups that went to search different areas. And so then we also have Jost, who doesn't have a report filed for November 7th, but he mentioned that the burn pit had been dug out by a front-end loader, and Radandt helped dig out silt ponds on the quarry property. And Jost talks about Radandt and the burn pit. So they're like mixing and matching who did what, when, how. Are they doing all this on purpose so nobody knows what was found where, how? Because if we're trying to backtrack how and when everything was found and by whom, we're having trouble. So a voicemail was left November 9th, 2005 from DCI regarding the pelvic bone found on the burn pile at Radandt's Quarry. So this might be where Eisenberg was requested by CASO to examine the human remains. And obviously none of this stuff is in the MTSO reports. And the CASO reports also leaves out a lot of stuff. Why is all this stuff left out, Maxwell?
Yeah, I have no idea.
On an up-and-up investigation, would it be left out?
I don't know.
If you're doing an investigation and you're searching,
Yeah.
would you document who's searching what, where, and who found what, when, and where?
Yes.
So I just asked you, on an up-and-up investigation, wouldn't all this stuff be included in the reports?
True. Yes.
So why is it not included?
I don't know. What wasn't included?
I'm asking you. You don't have any theories why it wasn't included?
I mean, no. What wasn't included?
Who found what where? Like the ilium. Who found the ilium? Where did they find it? When did they find it? You're not following?
No. I get it.
Okay.
That's good that you're asking that.
Well, I'm asking you. Any theories on why the information is not in any of these reports that have been released?
They're trying to hide something. I don't know.
Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, man. Trying to hide something. Especially if you're doing a frame up, right? You don't want all that information coming out. I guess.
Well,
they thought
also,
it was gonna be easy.
what if Eisenberg doesn't know? Wouldn't the easiest way to so if there's one or two people involved in this, or just a couple people, you don't need to tell Eisenberg who found what where. You just give them the evidence tag. Oh, you need to check this.
Yeah.
And
see
then
what
it's just
this is about.
conspicuously left off who found it where. So that person can't be asked. And that person might not even be in on it. Because if someone plants it and a
Yeah.
person just happens to be looking where it was planted,
Yeah.
they're being honest and saying, oh, I found this. He tagged Ilium. Boom. And for some reason, it's just kept off the report so nobody can trace it. It's kind of weird. Kind of weird.
Interesting observations.
What's weird is that Eisenberg said that she was given the exhibit, but Austin says that Eisenberg's team gave him the location. And Eisenberg said she doesn't know where the Janda burn barrels were. So who gave Eisenberg the bone, and how did Eisenberg know the location? So it seems like they created this weird circle of, oh, that was given to me. Oh, she told me to look there.
Just keep searching that area. The bones will turn up eventually. Go to lunch. When you come back, you might find them.
So it seems like it's possible these main bones were from the third site, or a third site
Back of somebody's car.
Nobody wants them to be looked at.
Just drive them over in your car.
So it'd
Didn't
be
even need to
interesting
find
to
'em.
see if Zellner figured out the origin of the ilium.
Or the origin of what thing it is. Or a person.
If it's a human, yeah. And then, of course, I mean, we talked about this briefly before. The burn barrels were swapped, potentially, and mixed and matched labels, and they all got put together when they were transported. So it would have been very easy for only one or two people to mix, match, and swap. So out of all the people, again, the illogical guilters are like, oh, well, all the people had to be complicit that were on the Avery Salvage Yard. Of course not. Only a couple people. How would anybody else know?
Yeah.
Like, they're covering stuff with tarps. They got it behind in the truck. Somebody could just walk over and switch a few labels. And who would ever know? I mean, this is just so... I mean, I mentioned this before. Is this whole Steven Avery case some kind of weird, bizarre, state-sponsored social experiment to see how gullible people are for certain convictions?
State sponsored.
So he's really in jail? Like this is a real thing? Or he's just...
Oh, yeah. Well, he'd be really in jail, yeah.
It's like...
No. It's a real frame-up. It really wasn't for it, but
real
I'm just
frame-up.
saying if this was kind of almost designed, sort of. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't really being serious about that, but...
Yeah, I mean, he's like he walks into his jail cell, and then there's like a back door he could go out, and then just have all his freedom. Because it's like it's a fake thing. It's just a show.
Oh my god.
The Truman Show? The Avery Show?
A Netflix production.
That's messed up. So what also weird is, when was the barrel taken from the deer camp, the one that was taken from the deer camp, and did Kratz order barrel number 4 to be returned back to the crime scene? So did the camp barrel get sent back and then labeled the Janda barrel? Because there's a whole bunch of weird stuff about that. So on November 6th, burn barrel number 4 was one of the 4 Janda burn barrels collected. This is on the CASO file, page 101. On November 7th, John Ertl, Charles Cates, and Guang Zhang got through barrel number 4 and were going through barrel number 2 when they were called back to the scene. Then barrel number 4 was placed back on the trailer. This is in CASO file, page 142. That's a lot of funny business. With people in the middle of going through the barrel, they get called off, and then another barrel gets put on the trailer.
What do you mean on the trailer?
So the trailer that they were using to transport the barrels,
Okay,
like
gotcha.
an enclosed trailer, whatever the storage trailer they were using to transport to the lab.
Okay.
Maxwell, no thoughts on this?
No thoughts.
Maxwell Army. So on November 7th, Wendy Balden was requested to stand by the garbage burn barrel at Steven Avery's house until evidence technicians arrived on scene. She did stand by with this until approximately 1,539 hours when the barrel was recovered by Calumet County's Sheriff's Department Deputy Ken Matuzak. CASO file, page 135. On November 7th, the 3 barrels that were remaining at the Sheriff's Department, a barrel Deputy Matuzak had brought back from the Avery property. CASO file, page 152. On November 8th, D.A. Kratz also wanted the barrel mark number 4 that was returned to the Avery property to be brought back
To
the lab.
the lab. Okay.
CASO file, page 152. The other burn barrels were taken from the deer camp on November 12th, per Pevito's testimony, day 18, page 34.
Heavy toes? What do you say?
Pevito.
Pevito.
Or is it Pevito?
DeVito.
Pevito? Wait, is Danny DeVito involved in the Stephen Avery case?
That's like
That
a
would be
little
a
anagram.
twist? That'd be the twist?
No, not is that the right word? Anagram, where it's like mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know what else is weird? Taking a step back and looking at the case objectively. So the bones are used as evidence that Teresa's dead, right?
Say it again.
So the bones are used as evidence that not only is Teresa dead, but the
Yeah,
bones
yeah.
were found on the Avery property.
They matched it with 7, whatever they call it, loci.
No, forget that it was. Let's forget
Okay.
the identification of Hallback. Let's
Okay.
let's say they are Hallbacks.
Okay, they
Or
are.
whatever. The so-called evidence is that bones found in Avery's burn pit and burn barrels were that of Teresa Hallback, right?
Yes.
Why is there no evidence of which bones were found when and by whom? Isn't that kind of important, Maxwell?
Yeah, it's pretty important.
So why do we not have evidence of which barrel was where, found by whom, when, and what exactly was in it? We don't have any of it. It's kind of weird. If you look at any other case, whenever you have evidence of the murder, like you know what if
Yeah,
OJ's
that's true.
glove,
That's true.
they're like, oh, we found it somewhere by somebody, but it's legitimate. No, whoa. Where did you find it, at what time, and who found it? Now you have these bones. We don't know which bone was found where, when, how, why, by whom.
Yeah, if
Like-
it was in the barrel or the burn pit.
And which
or
barrel? And
or
which
the
barrel?
other
And where was the
locations.
barrel?
Yeah.
Even if it was that barrel, where was the barrel? Who found it when?
Wow. Yeah, and then each day's search. So you searched it on the 4th or the 5th, the 6th.
It's all mixed up.
Yeah,
And then
like
when you put,
what happened on the 5th? Okay, why did you find it on the 10th and not on the 5th or
Yeah.
whatever
That's
days they
kinda
found
crazy.
it? Like, why are you searching it so many times?
And then, of course, like you said before, there's the problem. Maybe it's not even Teresa Hallback, because normally, I believe the FBI requires 14 loci to be matched as definitive. We're talking half here, so
Yeah.
definitely not definitive. So they couldn't exclude Teresa Hallback. And I still see all over the internet people are saying, "Oh, he did it. The bones were the DNA match was Teresa Hallback." No, it wasn't a DNA match. You have to look. You have to listen to our podcast, DNA for Dummies, Part 1 and Part 2. We specifically go over the FBI report. Teresa Hallback not being able to be excluded from the sample is not the same thing as matched to Teresa Hallback.
Yeah. At this point in time, we're just gonna assume that it's her until it's
Well-
like actually tested. Because like you can't really like who is it?
Well, why would you assume it was her? Maybe
No,
it's not
at this
her.
point, just to assume it is, just to kind of like.
We assume nothing. This is MINDSHOCK. We don't fall for logical
There's no proof
fallacies.
it's her. There is no proof it's not her.
Right, it could be her. I didn't
Yeah.
say it wasn't her. I'm just saying there's no
I'm
proof
just saying
it's her.
for me, I'm gonna assume it's her.
I wouldn't, because even some guys in prison, shouldn't you know for sure whether the person he's accused of killing is even dead?
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't you know for sure?
I mean, yeah, of course.
7 out of 14 loci is not for sure.
I feel like, yeah, those tests should have been pretty simple to do.
Maxwell, you think it's her?
I don't know. She hasn't come back, so I don't know. It increases the chances that it is her.
There's no other explanation. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna assume it's
Or
her.
it could be his sister's. Her
Or
sister.
cousin.
But I don't know, because she hasn't come back yet. So
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing that's weird, and we're going to get into the license plates in a moment. So we have who discovered the license plates, where, when, and all of that information.
Colburn found it? Was that him? I think he found it. He's like, I put this here last night. I know what car it was. Yeah, I think it was Colburn that found it, but yeah, he's the one that called in the license plate before.
Called in the license. I don't see who found it though.
He called in the license plate and then he folded it up and threw it into one of the cars. Yeah. Why can't I find who found the license plate? I believe I said to myself, "Damn, how did I miss that?" Alright, I guess it doesn't matter, right?
Hold
It
on,
doesn't matter who found it.
The license plates were found on Tuesday, November 8th, the same day that Lankin Coburn found the spare key in Avery's bedroom.
Oh, made a lot of progress that day.
So the day before, the volunteer firefighters were not asked to check inside any of the several thousand vehicles at the junkyard. The next day, they were instructed, which is funny because I guess after they planted them, that they were like, "Oh yeah, make sure you check the interior of the car so you can find them because they're there now." William Brandeis Jr., a volunteer with the Brillion Fire Department, came up with two dynamic pieces of evidence that further solidified Special Prosecutor Ken Kratz's case against the murder suspect. He found the license plates for the vehicle inside the station wagon. Volunteer firefighter. All right. So yeah, we don't know who found the quarry bones and exactly where they found them, if it was at a third site, and what was mixed and matched in the barrels. That's kind of weird because it seems like that's one of the most damning pieces of evidence. In addition to the RAV4 key, the spare key found in the bedroom that was searched many times, and the Q-tip looking blood smear on the RAV4, and the transfer DNA from Avery's Grand Am, admitted to by the tech as opening the headlights.
There's just so much evidence, man.
I know.
It's like so much.
Maxwell,
evidence.
have you heard a single piece of evidence that doesn't seem planted?
not
Like
yet.
even like with the John Benet Ramsey one we did, like there's no evidence, like at all. Like there's maybe some, but not as much as this.
Oh yeah.
And like if he did do it, why would he put everything on his property?
You got to park the
what?
car next to the car crash, right by the car. Like you have to pass the car crasher to get to where that car was parked.
Yo, what? It doesn't make sense.
Okay, so here's some interesting thoughts about Eisenberg's testimony. The implication in Eisenberg's testimony seems to be she learned about the item and its location from Austin's report. So I assume there is some sort of formal documentation out there. Hard to believe that wouldn't describe either the discovery of the bones or who informed Austin of the discovery location. A lot of oddities in the prosecution case. They don't call the person who informed them of the fire, Radandt, or the person that found the bones, Jost. They didn't seem to ask anyone in the search party who they apparently called to testify about going to the Avery property whether he actually looked for the RAV4. To me, it suggests they didn't want the defense to cross-examine these people or ask them logically pertinent questions, so they didn't call them or kept direct exam narrower than would otherwise be expected. Often, I get the sense their objections seemed almost nervous. Maybe that's just my reading of it, but things that seem insignificant, the way the prosecution seems to act overly defensive about it, seems odd. This is just an interesting thought from an online sleuth. What do you guys think about that? Is that on point? So another thing about Radandt is that he wasn't a nobody. So basically, they had some kind of agreements where police patrolled the gravel pits to keep kids away from them. So it's like, are he allowed, or they had some kind of agreement in place where the police went on his property anyway. Some people believe that a lot of these reports were fabricated. So a lot of these things were kind of set up beforehand, like if they planned to find something, they would fabricate reports a couple days before to justify the findings. This is just what some people think. Some people who theorize try to make sense of all of this insanity. So the other thing that's strange is if on November 5th, he told police officers at 5 p.m. about the fire and then went to the property less than 30 minutes later they didn't look at the burn pit. That's kind of weird. So why didn't they look at the burn pit on November 5th?
They definitely didn't. Like, when was that?
Well, some people are pointing to all these timeline issues with the fire and finding the bones is that they were kind of, they were getting their story straight. And it wasn't legitimate. So they were going back and forth a couple times. So there's a delay between finding the bones. And then, of course, Radandt was never called to testify about the fire. So obviously we had the Legend of the Fire episode where we discussed the legend of the bonfire that grew mysteriously with time, starting from 0, all of a sudden to flames higher than the garage.
Yeah, 15 feet.
And Jost was also never called to testify about the discovery.
And there was never a fire, right? In that time period. He
Supposedly
does do
not.
fires.
Yeah, supposedly there was no fire. So supposedly, some people think. Now, once again, Radandt does, and in Making a Murderer, Radandt does come off as kind of forthcoming. Like, he asked a lawyer whether he could talk about it, and then the lawyer said, yeah. He does seem forthcoming, insinuating that Manitowoc is not quite on the up and up. But some people say that Radandt had some kind of possible property dispute with the Averys, or that he wanted certain parcels of land. And this is next to Manitowoc County property land as well. So there is a conspiracy theory that we mentioned earlier that all of this is about land. Like, they wanted the Averys' land, and they either wouldn't sell or there was some kind of strangeness going on there. And then, of course, the police having their own tow company versus Avery's, and he was costing them business. So all of this sentiment seems to be ongoing, going all the way back to the 85 case. And then, of course, Radandt or Jost, they didn't testify and they weren't cross-examined. However, the CASO log shows Radandt signing in and out multiple times. And supposedly other employees that were referenced in Radandt's statement, they should have seen the fire as well. Did they? Where are their statements? Some people point to the lack of other statements as evidence that this was all fabricated. Some people are asking the question, okay, so this is Radandt's statement this is the statement, Gary Steer's investigative report on November 5th activity. Radandt was driving to his deer camp through his quarry where he observed a large fire on the Steven Avery property located by the Red House. Radandt indicates he remembers it being right after 4:30 because he had an employee that had just come to work to take another employee's shift at 4:30 p.m. So who are these other employees, and did they see the fire if it was that big?
Yeah.
Mystery. So some people question this whole thing because what is he doing at a hunting cabin on Halloween night? And then there's obviously damage on the RAV4. Did Brendan Dassey testify that Radandt was clearing brush to burn? And Radandt technically says that he's in the area on Halloween, the day Teresa went missing. Some people say that he should be a suspect. Bones found on his property and that he was clearing brush to make a fire. And supposedly he showed up at the car crusher when the RAV4 was found.
What?
Yeah, and some people are pointing to this all being a coincidence. So other people, of course, are questioning whether it's possible that Radandt even saw the fire. Because there's a ridge in the way, but other people say that that ridge can actually give you a vantage point. So without us actually standing there, it seems kind of... Are we doing a trip? Are we going to go on site, Maxwell?
Let's do it. Wisconsin.
So some of the photos there show that there could be large trees and smaller ones that would block the view. So who knows? And if Radandt was at least 1,000 feet away, that means the fire would have been huge.
50 feet. Like,
really big. And if from what we see, even if there was a fire in the fire pit, it wouldn't be big enough to see from the vantage point. I don't know. I guess it depends where exactly on his property he was, because it seems like there could be spots where he could see it and other spots where ridge or trees would be blocking the view. Or he misjudged the dates. But he's basically where the legend of the bonfire started, because that seems to be why law enforcement thought there was a fire on Halloween. And he's the only one that said that as of November 5th, because everyone else started changing their story on November 14th. And he also says that the fire is at 4:30 p.m., which is before sunset. Also, Radandt was apparently signing in and out of Avery Salvage during evidence collection.
What?
Well, I mean, members of the community were all searching, right? Like they
Or
were all
planting.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of strange? You have just random searchers and volunteers. How do you know none of them have a vendetta? Let's say Hilligus and Blowdorn and Radandt, all these people are innocent. How do you know that other members of the community that don't hate Avery are pretending to be assisting in the search when they're actually planting stuff on the property? Maxwell?
I missed what you said.
Surprise, surprise. Also, someone pointed out that Radandt's company was suing the city of Manitowoc under the because of a dispute of government contracts. So other people point to the conspiracy that there might have been minerals on Avery's property, as a pretty big property, and they wanted to mine it, and Avery wouldn't sell. A lot of different conspiracy theories. Also, the state's case is that Avery's fire utilized tires. So 4:30 p.m., how much black smoke would have been there for a gigantic fire with tires, black smoke? So if people are coming and going without seeing the fire, remember in the original statements I didn't notice that, if it's singeing your ear and there's a 1,000-foot column of black smoke, people can look up what fires look like in daytime using tires. I mean, there's a big black smokestack. Not easy to miss. Not easy to miss. So November 5th is when Radandt gives his consent to have his gravel pit searched. And 5 p.m., Calumet Sheriff's Department is questioning him at his deer camp. So did they find something then? Some people think they found something then, and then they're kind of coming up with some kind of story from that point. The other thing is they're questioning him at the deer camp, and they didn't question him at his house, or they didn't take him into the police station. They're questioning him in the privacy of his deer camp as if, again, we don't know what was said. So, do you think Radandt had anything to do with it, Johnny?
I don't know. I don't think so.
But here's the thing. So, blood and bones were found on Radandt's property, and yet nobody cared. Something's found on Avery's, and all of a sudden Avery did it. Isn't that kind of weird? Do you find that weird, Maxwell?
What?
So if something is found on Avery's, they're arresting him and prosecuting him for murder. Bones are found on Radandt's property, but yet nobody suspects him of doing anything. Is that weird?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's like they really just wanted to put away Avery.
Is Zellner still going after him?
Radandt?
Wasn't she going after him, or
I don't think she ever was, Johnny.
She initially thought maybe he had something to do with it, but she checked it out, and I don't know. It didn't seem like.
Or is she going after the brother or something?
I don't think
Somebody posted that Radandt's younger brother is married to a granddaughter of someone in Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. It seems like a lot of these people are connected. So some people think that Radandt actually assisted in moving certain evidence from Radandt's property between November 5th and November 7th to Steven Avery's. Obviously with help from certain officers. So also what's weird is, so Barb Janda said that her house was full of people by 5 p.m. There were a lot of people at the house. So none of them, and this was by 5. So if Avery's burning Hallback from between 4:35, nobody notices anything. That's kind of weird. That's the other thing that's kind of weird. Like, there are people around. It's not like we're talking middle of the night here. So Avery's gonna kill somebody who's supposed to be on his property when he's gonna get 36, when has a 36 mil lawsuit. It doesn't make any sense. It's like he wanted them to see him do it, and yet nobody saw anything. Why did nobody see anything? Would you burn a body with people like right next door?
No.
I
I wouldn't burn a body.
Would you burn a body or even murder or burn somebody with people right next door, like when you have neighbors right there?
No, not really.
But he did.
And so again, they didn't search the fire pit on the 5th, 6th, or 7th. So either they were that scared of Avery's dog, or they knew the stuff wasn't in the fire pit at that time.
Oh, it wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they didn't plan it yet. So the other thing that's kind of weird, so they find the car, and then Orth, who found the car, he said that he didn't see any blood in the car. So at that moment, she's still a missing person. She's not dead. So why aren't they looking everywhere for her? It seemed like they weren't really interested in finding her because they already knew what happened to her.
They knew she was dead before.
Yeah,
They got any
because if
info.
you look at it from that angle, if we say, okay, well, let's say they knew she was dead and they were doing a planning operation, do their actions make sense? As opposed to they don't know that she's dead, she's a missing person. And this is, Mike Hallback had already said that he needed time to mourn in an interview. Well, nobody knows that she's dead. Why does he need time to mourn? Shouldn't he be hoping that she'd be discovered? Or at least unknown. I mean, she could be dead, she could be alive. He just needs time to mourn. Right off the bat, someone goes missing and you need time to mourn immediately. You're not worried about finding the person. It's just weird.
How many days after that?
It was a couple days after. He said that, yeah.
And no bones were found then?
Correct.
Damn. That's messed up.
Mike Hallback, yeah.
It seems like that. If this
That's
is
still
like,
that's messed up because like you already decided
yeah, that she's
like
gone, not
you
come
can't. You have to keep.
It's like
hopes
he
up.
knew.
back. And that wasn't his. That was his half sister, right? Or like stepsister. That wasn't a real brother sister.
I mean, he didn't even entertain the idea that she could be in someone's basement, like being tortured or whatever. Like, I mean, it's still bad, but still, like that's like, you would hope for that,
Yeah,
so you
still
can get her
alive.
back. Like,
Yeah.
huh? That's interesting. That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, if it is all just some kind of weird setup, it seems like there's a lot of people involved.
Yeah, it's messed up. Yeah, it's not like with with Maura Murray, it's not like Fred, oh, 2 days after, like,
Yeah.
I need time to mourn. Like,
Yeah.
I think he kept it up for a while, right? Like 2 years at least, or
And, well, the other thing that was weird is Pam Sturm seemed to only be looking for a car. Like, why isn't she looking...
For her.
Yeah. Why is nobody looking for her?
Yeah, I know.
And if you and Pam Sturm's calls to Pagel and Weigert, so she's not looking for Teresa Hallback, and Pagel and Weigert seem to know that also. So she calls to report the RAV4, and no one even asked her, like, any sign of Teresa. It's just like, oh, you found it.
All right, now the story is starting. He found the car. Now, next, find the license plate and the keys. Yeah.
And so I think we talked about this before. Every time Pam is about to say something, Kratz jumps in. I'm going to stop you right there, Pam. Can you tell the jury what you were looking for? And then she said, we were looking for any trace of Teresa, be it the car or herself. So he keeps cutting her off anytime she could possibly make a mistake. And again, if we compare this to like countless other missing persons cases, nobody behaves like this. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just weird. It's just a very weird response. So, plenty more evidence to examine, but we hope you enjoyed another episode of MindShock True Crime. If you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like the video, hit the like button. Feel free to share it across social media platforms. Leave any thoughts, comments, questions, insults, or suggestions, and we will check them all out. You could make sure to like our Facebook page, and you could also check out our Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
and Maxwell Powers.
And Johnny Mills.
See you guys next time.